Welcome to week 4 of the Essentials Practice. About 10 years ago, I decided to go on a road trip across the country. I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. I was young and the world was full of endless possibilities. So I packed everything in my car and drove west. I didn't have a job, I didn't know anyone, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I just knew this was my next step. But somewhere along the way, the excitement started to wear off. And I sat there behind the wheel wondering, what am I doing? I don't have a plan. I don't have a job. This is crazy. I bet this is what James and John felt like when they decided to follow Jesus. They left everything behind. They left their fishing careers, their family, and everything they ever knew to follow Jesus. And I bet somewhere along the way, they wondered, what are we doing? What have we gotten ourselves into? In Mark chapter 1, we read, as Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come, follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once they left their nets and followed him. When he had gone a little farther, he saw James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John in a boat preparing their nets. Without delay, he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men and followed him. Imagine you're James and John working with your dad on the beach, mending your nets, when this guy who looks like Russell Brand walks up and says, come, follow me. What do? I'll tell you what I would do. I'd look at him and say, get lost, pal. We're trying to run a business here. We're busy. But Jesus invited them to follow him, to become his disciples. And what's wild is they actually did. They dropped everything and followed Jesus. They became his disciples. See, James and John would have grown up hearing about the Messiah. They would have learned about the one who would come and save God's people from their sin. And here he was, right before them, inviting them to follow him. This is the one they were waiting for. This is the one they grew up learning about. And here he was, Jesus of Nazareth. So they dropped their nets and followed him. I wonder what it felt like when they started following Jesus. I bet it was amazing. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. But at some point, reality must have settled in. They must have started thinking, what in the world have we gotten ourselves into? We left our jobs. We left our families. We've left everything. What have we done? See, a disciple was a student of a rabbi. Think less of a classroom and more of an apprenticeship. A disciple didn't just learn what the rabbi believed. They became his apprentice and learned how to become like him. They spent every waking moment with their rabbi, following their every move. When he prayed, they prayed. When he ate, they ate. When he traveled or rested or ministered to people, they did too. They followed Jesus around doing everything that he did. This is what it meant to be a disciple, to be an apprentice of Jesus. Now, the word disciple is used 269 times in the Bible to describe followers of Jesus. But the word Christian only appears 3 times. In other words, when someone became a follower of Jesus, they didn't just become a Christian, they became a disciple. The overwhelming emphasis is that Jesus invites us to follow him, to think like him, to love like him, and to live like him. See, to follow Jesus is to order our entire lives around Jesus and his way of life. To follow Jesus is to spend time with him and to learn to become like him. This is what it means to be a disciple. This is what it means to follow Jesus. To be a disciple means to spend time with Jesus, to pray, read the scriptures, and sit at his feet. It means becoming like him. It means turning from our old ways of life to follow Jesus and his way of life. And it affects everything. How you spend your time, your money, what you think about, and what you love. This is what it means to be a disciple, to follow Jesus. And this is what James and John signed up for. But have you ever wondered, are James and John out of their minds? Like, they know Jesus is God, right? They do know he can walk on water and raise the dead. Do they actually think they can be like him? At some point, they must have thought, what have we gotten ourselves into? There's no way we can follow Jesus. We can't be like him. We can't do what he does. He's God. See, following Jesus isn't just difficult. It's impossible. We're not God, and trying to be like him is crazy. We can't do what he did, and no one in their right mind would even try. The bar is way too high. Jesus is God. Listen, if you told me to play basketball like Michael Jordan, it would do me no good. I simply can't. I don't have the skill or the genetics or the ability. There's no way I could do what Michael Jordan did. I could practice my whole life and give everything I have to become like Michael Jordan, and it wouldn't work. I could never do it because I'm not him. It wouldn't just be difficult. It would be impossible. But what if the actual spirit of Michael Jordan was inside of me? I know this is weird, but what if the real spirit of Michael Jordan was inside of me, empowering me to be like him? Sure, it would take some hard work and practice, but maybe, just maybe, I could be like him. Like if the animating presence of Michael Jordan, if his skill and muscle memory and ability empowered me, maybe I could be like him. And what if the very spirit of Jesus was living inside of you? What if the very presence and power of Jesus himself was in you? And what if he empowered you to be like him and do what he did? Well, that's exactly what Jesus promised. See, in John 15:5, Jesus said, apart from me, you can do nothing. But then shortly after, he said, very truly, I tell you, it is for your good that I am going away. Unless I go away, the advocate will not come to you. But if I go, I will send him to you. Following Jesus isn't just difficult, it's impossible. But if the actual Holy Spirit of Jesus lives inside of you, maybe you can follow Jesus. Maybe discipleship isn't just something we do in our own power. Maybe it's something we do in the Holy Spirit's power. And think about it. The Holy Spirit of God lives inside of you. Think about how wild that is. The third person of the Trinity, God himself, lives inside of you. And he empowers you to live like Jesus. He empowers you to turn from sin. He empowers you to do the stuff that Jesus did. He empowers you to be his witness. The Holy Spirit empowers you to be a disciple of Jesus. And now, because of the Holy Spirit, following Jesus is possible. It's still difficult and costly, but it is possible.